In lesson 29 here, we're going to be taking a look at a brief introduction to equations. We're all familiar with equations, but in a very simple manner, a mathematical statement that has an equal sign in it is an equation. What we're saying by an equation is that one side of the equation is going to be equal to the other side. Even though the numbers may be different in appearance, their values should be the same. If you have that situation, you have what's called a true equation. Well, let's take a look here. 4 plus 7 is what's on the left side of the equation sign. What is 4 plus 7? Well, it's 11. On the right-hand side of the equation, we also have an 11. Does 11 equal 11? Yes. So here we have a true equation. It's also possible to have a false equation. 4 plus 7 equals 7. Well, if we take a look at the left side of the equation, the area that's left of the equal sign, 4 plus 7 is 11. Does 11 equal 7? No. So what we have here is a false equation. We can also have equations that have a variable or multiple variables in it. And that's what we have here in this one. X is our variable. X plus 2 equals 9. So my question is this equation true or false, the way it's written? Well, since we don't know what X is, by the way this is written, this equation all by itself is neither true nor false. However, are there any values for X that we can put in here to make the equation true? Yes, there is. So let's read it this way. X plus 2 equals 9. Another way of saying that is instead of saying X, the variable, just replace it with the phrase what number. What number plus 2 equals 9? What's the answer? Well, the answer is 7. 7 plus 2 equals 9. So X here equals 7. So in order for this equation to be true, X has to be 7. If we choose any other value for X, this equation will be false. If we put in a 10, 10 plus 2 is 12. 12 does not equal 9. The method by which we are finding out which value or values for a particular variable will make the equation true, that's called solving the equation. So for the equation x plus 2 equals 9, I tell you to solve it, and we solve it by finding out that x has to equal 7 in order for this equation to be true. So for this equation here, how many different solutions are there? Well, there's just one, and that solution is x equals 7. Well, let's take a look at our next equation. X squared equals 100. Solve it. Which value or which values for x will make this equation true? Well, x can equal 10. Why? Because 10 squared equals 100. Well, what does 10 squared mean? It means 10 times itself. 10 times 10. Well, 10 times 10 is 100. So x equals 10 is a solution to this problem. Are there any other solutions to this problem? There is. There's one more. Can you think what it is? You have to go back and remember that a negative number times a negative number gives us a positive answer. The other answer is x equals minus 10. If we put in a minus 10 here for x and square it, what does that mean? Minus 10 squared means minus 10 times minus 10. Negative 10 times negative 10. Well, negative 10 times negative 10 is positive 100 because a negative times a negative gives you a positive. So for this equation here, we actually see that there are two solutions. One being a positive and one being a negative. And that's because we had a variable that was squared here. In our last equation here, 3x equals 21. Well, if you remember, when a number is written immediately next to a variable and there's no other operational sign between the two, it means that a multiplication is occurring. So what this is really saying is 3 times x equals 21. Well, if it's helpful to you, replace x with the phrase what number. 3 times what number equals 21? Well, that number is 7. 3 times 7 is 21. So for these three equations here, we solved them, and we solved them by finding out which values for x would make the equation true. This first equation only had one solution. This last equation also had just one solution. But our middle equation actually had two solutions. So you can see that sometimes it varies. And as a quick review, an equation is any mathematical sentence that contains an equal sign. In our next bullet point, when you have an equation that contains at least one variable, solving the equation involves finding out which values for x will make the equation true. Some equations have no solutions, some have one solution, and others have more than one solution. So this was just a brief introduction to equations to get you to understand what an equation is and what it means to solve an equation. That'll finish up session 29.